The industry is slow. So what? Okay, today we're going to talk about why the industry is slow, what has maybe caused that if you don't know already, and what do we do about it? Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. Oh. Okay, if you're watching this in 2024, you're likely vacillating between cautiously optimistic and Chicken Little. The sky is falling. There's really not much place for a lot of hope, a lot of joy about this industry, right? Ironically, it was much busier during COVID. Huh. Why? I mean, after a dual strike where we got most of what we wanted, the actors and the writers too, wasn't 2024 supposed to be the year that everything came roaring back? No? Well, if you haven't read a single article from Deadline or the Hollywood Reporter or any other news outlet that might cover the industry, and if you don't have any friends that might have their finger on the pulse of the industry, side note, I encourage you to not only read the trades, but also to have trusted people in your circle that know more than you, that seem to have their finger on the pulse of the industry better than you, so that you can stay on top of these things. But if you've been living under a rock or in another country, or you're just not really sure what's going on, then I'll give you the broad strokes. Yes, in 2024, there was the potential for a strike with the Teamsters and IATSE, which some people thought was keeping the industry from roaring back to life. I was one of them. But the big broad stroke way of generalizing what we're experiencing right now is that the streaming bubble burst. And without getting too lost in the weeds, think about it from a consumer perspective. How many streaming subscriptions do you have? Can you count them? And maybe you don't. Maybe you have very few. Maybe you've only got one or two. Do you have FOMO on all those shows people talk about that you're not watching? And if not, if you don't care about the fact that there are dozens and dozens and dozens of shows that you haven't seen yet, then that doesn't bode well for those studios that are producing those shows. If most consumers don't care that they're missing out on 80% of what's being produced, then clearly those streaming numbers, those viewership numbers can't be good. The point is, the streaming model was never really sustainable or profitable. I watched an interesting video essay on how Netflix killed television, and I encourage you to Google or search on YouTube any sort of combination of those words, that streaming services killing television. But in a nutshell, these streaming services are bleeding money. And that just couldn't go on for a long time. In the early days, by telling your shareholders that you were increasing subscribers and you were growing your streaming service, that was enough to keep your stock price going up. But at some point, if you're not making more money than you're spending, well, then the stock price plateaus and then it starts to go down. And the almighty dollar is behind all of these decisions. And so eventually things have to come back to reality, or the bubble bursts. And then add to that the fact that the actors and the writers did get so much of what we wanted last year. So the very thing that is already bleeding these studios money just got more expensive. So the bubble bursts. Now, it's more complicated than that, but the TLDR, as the cool kids say, is that the purse strings are tighter with all of the studios. Therefore, less projects are being greenlit. There are so many projects that have been shelved or are in the pipeline, but they just haven't been given that green light yet. Add to that other countries around the world have gotten savvy and started adding more incentive for these productions to leave America and go shoot elsewhere. So the normal hubs for production, LA, Atlanta, New York, well, we are suffering. Okay, so that's the landscape right now, and you're freaking out a little or a lot, and it makes sense. This is your career, right? So this is important to you. Side note, if this is not your career or if this is just a passing interest, well, this may not be the right video for you. But assuming this is your career and that you do care so much, then your anxieties, they get fueled by forces that are outside of your control. The number of auditions that you're getting, the number of productions shooting in your area, whether or not your look is currently in vogue or if it's out of fashion, tax incentives in other states or countries, and the list goes on. And then when desperation starts to creep in, it can lead to side effects, such as posting depressing stories on social media, Hate liking other actors' posts who seem to be working. Yeah, yeah. Changing your hair color, or growing a mustache and then shaving it. Accusing your agent of not doing their job, or heck, dropping your agent. Moving to another city or country. And for a full list of side effects, please consult your doctor. Okay, great. We've identified the problem. It's slow. Why it's slow and how that's making you feel. So now what do we do? First, breathe. Take a walk. Seriously, you need to get your head out of this particular mindset of obsessing about the future, about something that you can't control. I mean, some of you right now on November 11th are obsessing over the next 4 years of your life. Wink, wink. And you're not adding any years to your lifespan by worrying. So instead of worrying, I'll give you 2 categories to consider. Do something or do something else. And as this relates to your acting career, let me first talk about that second option. You can do something else. You can finish that degree. You can go back to school for something else. You can double down on that corporate side hustle and make it a full-time career. You can make tons of money doing something else. You can start a family. You can live a full, joyous life not being an actor. I mean, think about it. Never having to worry about audition numbers again, or never having to worry about getting put onto the cutting room floor and having no footage for your reel. Sounds kind of nice, huh? And it doesn't make you a failure if you were to pursue something else. It makes you discerning. It makes you adaptable to your circumstances. But if a life without acting feels like a life without oxygen, well, then what do you do? Well, the other option that I'm presenting is to do something. And here I'll quote my buddy Alex Collins. He likes to say, control your controllables. Spoiler alert, Alex and I recorded a conversation not too long ago, and we'll be dropping some nuggets from that conversation over the next few weeks. Okay, great. Love your bumper sticker wisdom. Control your controllables. What does that mean? Well, you can control where you live. Now, in the side effects portion of my video, I mentioned moving as a potential side effect. Well, that's when you move without a purpose, when you move out of sort of throwing your hands up. But if you know you live in a small town where there really is no industry hub, then it might make good sense for your career to move closer to that urban center where there is a lot of production. Another thing you're in control of is your agent. Remember, your agent works for you. Now, in the side effects, I talked about dropping your agent or yelling at your agent for not doing their job. That's what happens when you're irrational or you're letting your emotions get the best of you. But if you have your wits about you, then you can take stock of your relationship with your agent. And if you communicate not just with the actors around you, but with the agent themselves to find out if this relationship is truly symbiotic and if you are benefiting from this relationship and if they are actually on your team and in support of your career, because sometimes they're not. If you can discern all of that and realize, wow, this is not a good fit, well, now you're making a rational decision. You're being discerning about this relationship, and it might be time to move to a different agency. Of course, you're in control of your materials. Your headshot, if you have not updated that since COVID, you're long overdue. You had a grace period during COVID and even after COVID a little bit, but you have changed since COVID. Maybe not so much physically, but we're all different people than we were. Heck, your body replaces all of its cells every 7 to 10 years, and so you definitely need new headshots if you've not done so since 2018, 2017. Have you updated that demo reel? I'm about to update mine because I finally have some new footage that I can add to it. So it's getting a much needed revamp and update. But if you haven't updated your reel in years or ever, well, then that's something you can control and it's something you might be ready to do. Side note, not everyone needs a reel. If you're new to this industry, you do not need a reel. But that's a topic for another video. Instead of a reel, maybe you just want to put clips up on your different websites like Actors Access. Maybe it's time to find those clips and actually put those online so that you can update your materials. The other huge one that you're in complete control of is your training. You have training, right? And it's not from 25 years ago. You're still training, right? You're still looking for ways of expanding your knowledge, not just free YouTube videos, but actually trusted teachers and coaches that have wisdom to impart and that can level up your craft. And maybe you've done a lot of training when it comes to the craft of acting. Well, you can think outside the box. Have you taken a voiceover class, like Intro to Voiceover with our friends at Atlanta Voiceover Studio? Maybe take a class on writing or directing. I know places here in Atlanta like our film festival and Trilith, they have an institute where they offer classes in these different disciplines. And you might awaken some new talent, some new interest that you didn't know you had that's still inside the industry, but a different corner of it where you might feel like you've got more fuel, more momentum to make progress without having to wait for the industry to come to you. And speaking of, you can create right now. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need to wait to be cast. Create YouTube videos. You can make funny skits and sketches and mix them ups for the social media stories and reels. You can paint, you can write, you can produce a short film with your friends. It doesn't have to be good. And if these suggestions don't feel the same as when you get booked for a big TV or film project, well, it might be shining a light on the fact that your only definition of success is fame and riches. Which leads me to the final point, which is your mindset. You're in full control of what is happening between your ears. As much as you want to blame it on your agent, casting, the industry, you get to choose your reality based on how you react to the circumstances, the stimuli around you. Now, I'm speaking from a first world perspective where all of my basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs are being met, my food, shelter, water, etc. So if you're living in a first world country where your safety isn't in question, your basic needs aren't in question, you're watching this video because you're feeling this anxiety as an actor. Well, then what I'm saying is that all of your problems are existing between your ears, and that yes, the industry is slow. Yes, you might not have booked in months or years, but that is not the problem. It's how you're reacting to it that is causing your anxiety. And like I said just a few minutes ago, you can either do something or you can do something else. So even with the events of last week, if you choose to fixate on things that are outside of your control, then it just serves to increase your anxiety. And to be clear, I'm not advocating that you bury your head in the sand as it relates to the events of last week or your acting career. I mean, while ignorance can be bliss at times, I'm not saying that you should ignore your reality. I'm just saying that I know for a fact that you're getting worked up over things that are outside your control, or that you're just refusing to take action on to rectify. I know for a fact because I do it. We all do it. It's easy to complain. It feels good to gather with fellow actors and complain about the industry because that sort of makes us all equal. It's much harder to be that lone person in the crowd who stands up for themselves and takes action to improve their own situation. Control your controllables. It's a much healthier mindset. You might even find joy in the process. Imagine that. All right, how are you controlling your controllables? Drop a comment below. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.